Welcome to Code with JV. Oh, I'm excited about what I've got for you today. It is a production-ready AI-powered coding assistant. I've started integrating it into my daily workflow, and I'm seeing lots of other people online saying the same thing. First AI-powered assistant that they're actually using for production work day to day. Let's dive into it. It's called aider. Aider? I'm going with aider. I don't know. I'm guessing it's a portmanteau of AI and Coda. It is a CLI tool. You run it in your terminal. It's powered by OpenAI's APIs. So GPT-4, GPT-3.5 plans to integrate it with others over time. I've seen some tickets about playing around with Claude, which means you're burning credits when you use it, but it's well worth it. It's tightly integrated with Git, which means it is committing to Git for you. And it can do not just create sample code, but it can perform operations like add unit tests, refactor, move this, add a particular function, change it to this. The tasks you do day-to-day coding, it can start to do those things. But it is tightly integrated with Git, which is sort of a plus and a minus, but I think that's why it's getting cut through, is just its usability. It's being updated, maintained. Paul, who leads the project, lovely, responsive on GitHub, new features coming out. I'm seeing issues resolved every day. It's looking good enough that I actually went ahead and integrated it with my favorite editor. More on that in a bit. The guides are excellent, really good tips about how to use it, great installation tips. So I won't go through a full install for you, but I'll just give you some pointers. One of the things about this approach of sending requests to OpenAI is that every time you send requests, you've got to give ChatGPT the information about your code base. This is a lot of what aider does. It gives you tools for managing what information you send to ChatGPT each time you talk to it. It is a pip module, so just pip install aider chat will get it into your code base. You might want to wrap it in an environment, or I've just installed it globally because I use it everywhere. It also uses a feature called C tags, which is old tech, initially used for coding editors to know the types of function you've got in your code, etc., to enhance IDEs. You don't need to use C tags, but if you do, it performs better. This is where C tags creates a summary of all your functions that are used that can be passed to really summarize your entire code base and help ChatGPT give you better responses. It needs to have the JSON flag. I had to actually uninstall my original version of C tags, which was exuberant C tags, and then I had to replace it with universal C tags. So apt-get install universal C tags got me the right version to integrate in. Once you've done that, then you just need to have an OpenAI key saved in your environment in the right format, and you're good to go. I'm in a new folder here. Let's open it in VS Code. This is a useful way of just seeing what's happening in the code as we go. Let's launch it. So aider, no flags. It will start to initialize a Git repo because, like I said, it's tightly coupled with Git. And the reason is because it can change your files on you, and sometimes it can make bad mistakes you don't want. Putting it in Git is a way of making sure you can quickly unroll anything it does for you. Because if you've got something that isn't in Git and aider trashes it, you might lose some data. You can run it with a no Git flag if you want. It's got some extensive flags. Actually, let's have a look at that. So if you go aider help, you'll see all the things you can do, like don't use it with Git, turn off auto commits. You can start to change the themes and everything in there. You can start to change which model you're using. A lot of options here. So quite a full-featured application. Let's turn it back on. It'll tell you what model it's using. It will tell you whether it's using C tags or not. And it's going to use 1,000 tokens as its quota for how much space the C tags can take up. You can modify that like most things in it. Type help, and you'll see the commands you can run in the program. Now, just by doing this, starting at making a Git repo, it's gone and made all these hidden files up here. First thing you want to do, get that into a git ignore. The tool is quite sensitive to the state of your Git. So if you fire it up with uncommitted changes, like I said before, it's going to try and protect you by making sure everything that it touches is saved in Git before it does anything. So it can seem a bit annoying, but once you realize it's there to protect your files, you can roll with it. If we type in tokens, it's got a system message and it's got a repository map. So this is where you can start to see how many tokens it's using. Every time you make a chat, it will store that a summary of it so that it continues to be aware of previous discussions, like a good chatbot would. Anything you type here is just an instruction to GPT. Please create a hello, like so. I find GPT-4, there's a bit of lag with it coming back. 3.5, it's much faster, but not as good. So here it's saying, let's make a hello world file. Let's do a print. Do you want me to add the file? Yep, it's edited it. We have ourselves a file. We've got the hello world. Oh, one tip. I wouldn't actually run it in the terminal in VS Code. I'd run it in a separate window because the terminal gets quite stuttery and the output's not as good. Here we've got this. Python, hello world, no surprises. That's not that notable. Let's look at our Git history. you'll see it's actually very verbose in the Git history when you've got auto commits turned on. So every time you do a chat message, by default, it will save something into your Git history and you'll be able to see what the chat was, what the response was, etc. I think the innovation of this tool was like, let's get the output in diffs and let's put those diffs straight into Git. That's what's turned it from just, wouldn't really use it to, actually, this is functional enough. Like I said before, you can turn off auto commits if you want to have more control over what your Git history looks like. If you type help, you'll see there are some things like commit, diff, etc. Undo, hey, I don't like what you just did. That commit is gone, dropping hello world, all right, thank you. And now it's gone and step back. So if it makes a change you don't like, you can just do undo, roll back. All right, that's a starting point. If you go aider -3, now you're in GPT 3.5 mode. And the difference is some of it's financial. So GPT-4, 3 cents, 1,000 tokens, 8K window, 3.5, a tenth the price, twice the number of tokens. But you've got to be a lot more precise when you're using 3.5 and give it smaller tasks. Right, what should we try and make? I've made Pong before. Maybe we can do noughts and crosses? Yeah, let's see what it can do. The high level, very abstract task. Here we can see it is checking the wind, playing the game, malformed response. Wait up. I'm in 3.5. The speed was giving it away. Let's see how 3.5 did at this job. Print board, check win, play game. Maybe it was good enough at this. One of the advantages of a tool like this is switching between your models based off the task you've got at hand. If I was watching GPT-4 do that, it's more expensive. Tons slower is what bothers me more. You're watching it tick, tick, tick. 3.5 spins it out quite quickly. So maybe that was a fortunate mistake. Noughts and crosses. Oh yeah, enter a row. 0, 0, enter the column. It looks like it's a 2-player game. And we go 1, 5, 1, 5, it busts. Doesn't have error handling in it. But hey, it's a step in the right direction. Let's see how 3.5 goes at changing this. One of the things if I type tokens, you'll see that token count has gone up because it's got the code itself. It's also got chat history. If you type clear, you can remove your chat history. It forgets about what you've been talking about. If you type drop, it is going to remove context that it sends down to it. This is what I mean by having a lot of control over the context you send your AI tools on every query. But I'm happy with that for now. Let's go with a next step. Let's add some error checking for bad input. Now let's have a look at what the app looks like. I'm going to go 5. Hey, that's wrong. So that is a reasonable task. And I wonder if it gets the win condition right. 0, 0, like so. I want to do 2, 0, right? Okay, and now let's have a race. 0, 1. All right, who's going to win? Damn, got it wrong. Okay, I'm beating myself and it's confusing on things. So I'm going to go 2, 2. Player X wins, so it's got a win condition. It's a noughts and crosses game. We're probably talking about a cent of credits to make a simple start like this. Now, that's all well and good. Let's start to see how it handles multiple files. A typical task I do here is like, actually, let's get your display logic and your business logic out. Let's see if it can refactor this into multiple files. It's got themes where you can mess with the colors to make them more visible in different contexts. It's making a board.py and it's making a game.py. We've got our game, we've got our board, and noughts and crosses, it is left untouched. So it looks like it's just made 2 new ones. I might do a git log where I can actually see. Notice that 3.5 has less verbose git commits. Okay, so it's made those changes. If we go Python game, etc. So it looks like the game's still playable and it's refactored that out. This is where it started to create files. Look at this, it's got a board, it's got a print board, it's an update, it's a whole board class. And here is a game code, which has got a bunch of the game things which uses the board class. You can give it instructions like, please move to functional programming, please translate into another language. And it can start to do tasks like this quite quickly. And this is all on 3.5. We haven't even touched the powerful model yet, and it's still doing useful work in this toy domain. A few more things you can look at here. The reason I went to multiple files, let's go to list. ls, these are the files in chat. I don't think we need noughts and crosses anymore. Drop it. And now the token count will be just these files here. You can also do things like, is our chat history useful? Probably not. Clear. Now the chat history is gone. And just those files are in there. So as you're coding, you can start to control the tokens because maybe you want to control the costs on the expensive models. Though I was coding for hours and spent like $5-6. Before seeing this tool, I was like, oh yeah, AI tools are coming for programmers. It's going to affect us. It's affecting us already. I'm using ChatGPT mostly. Even GitHub Copilot I found is only okay. After seeing this, I'm starting to form the view that like 6 months from now, 12 months from now, if someone is paying you to write code and you are not using this tool, you are probably doing them a disservice. Unless there's a good reason not to be using AI tools, such as private code bases, organizational policy, etc. Otherwise, I think you are wasting your client's money if you type all the stuff out and you don't lean on these types of tools. They're getting to that level of utility. And aider's still early. It's still got bugs. It's still got things that are being worked out. But fast forward 6 months, 12 months from now, I think you need to be using it, which is interesting to get to such a strong viewpoint so quickly. But who knows what will happen. Let's actually try and ship a real feature. Remember how I said I'd integrated it with my favorite editor, which is, of course, Vim. I've been using Vim for 20 years and I love it so much. It's just become ingrained in how I work. One of the things about Vim is it's a personalized coding environment, which you configure to work the way you want. I want it to work with aider, so I built a plugin to do so. Here is the plugin so far. It's pretty vanilla at the moment. It doesn't do much apart from if I open up a code base. So I'm in Vim now, and I've got this is the main guts of the plugin. All it really does is say, hey, if I type a keyboard shortcut, it opens up aider in a separate window. I can close out of it quite quickly and easily. But I can also hit a different keyboard shortcut, and now I've opened it in silent mode, so it's not doing auto commits. Or a different one, and now I'm using GPT-3. So with a couple of keystrokes, it's firing up different models of aider in the code base, and that's enough for me to prefer using it in Vim as opposed to having a separate terminal window running. Just that flexibility to shift the commands quite quickly. If I have a look at my aider plugin, this is where I can quickly set up different keyboard shortcuts to open aider with whatever flags I want, whatever models I want. That's a starting point, but let's do something more. Because one of the biggest drags about aider is manually managing what you want to send and how. What I would like to do is when I'm in a file and I open it up, I go ls here, it doesn't have any files in its context. It doesn't know about the file I was just in. It'd be pretty easy to send it. It's just a command line argument. So that's what I'll do. I'm going to go and say add aider. I might add the docs as well. If you look at some of the issues which are interesting, there is one around automatic file context window management. So like, how does it drop files when you don't need them? How does it add them as you need them without you having to manually do it as much? Putting smarts in there. There was another one for learn from documentation. Wouldn't it be nice to have a /research command in there and give it a URL or give it a name of a library, and it went and hoovered up the information online and smartly managed it and sent the right bits to ChatGPT as you need? Those features, it'll just lift this up to the next level of awesomeness. So I just want to make a little nibble on this one for my particular use case, which is instead of having to manually add things in there, let's have it automatically manage some of them. To do that, GPT needs to know a little bit about the command line tool. It doesn't know anything about aider. It knows about this code here, but that's got limited info in it. So what I might do is if I just go aider help, like so, I have just made a little text file, which is a file which can be added to aider itself, which has the command line tool interfaces on it. And I think you can do this where you copy and paste documentation, just stick it in there. Without any improvements to the tool, you can quickly start to do things where you add them in yourself. Although one problem here is if you do this and I try and go add, it's not going to find it because it only knows about stuff in Git. It won't add anything unless it's in Git because it wants to protect you. So if we go here, like this, I'm in main, we don't want to be in main. I'm calling this a auto add buffer. I'll probably throw that away once I've finished this code base, but just as an example of how things need to be in Git to use it. It's a stepping stone. And now I haven't had to refresh aider. It just looks in real time to see, is it allowed to add it? Help text. Now I can see it knows about the help docs. It knows about the documentation, which I don't think is actually going to help it. And this is the game of like, oh, what does ChatGPT need to know to do this job? It's similar to if I had an intern or a junior programmer, I'd ask myself, what do they need to know to do this work? Go look at these docs and so on. And sort of cultivating someone else to succeed is a little bit of the skill I think you need to get the most out of these AI tools. Let's drop, and I don't need the doc thing. Now we can start to give it some tasks. What I want it to do is automatically add the buffers to the window when we open it. So when I open aider, please automatically add all the buffer files. And also check to see if, actually, I'll do it step by step, because if you give it too many tasks, it gets a bit overloaded. Where if you give it smaller tasks, it's more likely to get it right, less likely to have to redo work. Let's see what it does here. You can probably see the speed difference between 4 and 3.5. It is modifying this existing function, and I didn't have a huge amount of code here, but this is the code. It's saying, change this function. Oh, and let's go and do some things where I'm mapping over the buffers in Vim. A buffer is sort of like all the files that you have opened. I'll show you about them in a second. It's added them, and now it's made a commit, reload it. Now I've got this code in here. So testing Vim plugins, well, that's a thing in itself. I'm just going to re-update it. This is updating all of them. I think I might actually need to restart the whole thing. Yeah, I know, it seems like you're trying to talk to close and open files with Vim. Sorry, ChatGPT, but thank you for the input. I find that my biggest problem with Vim is that I use it so much. I often type its shortcuts into other contexts where it doesn't help. Let's have a look here. And let's get Lua open. Now, did it work? Look at that. So with that change, this is a useful feature. I'll be shipping this to the repo soon, which is up here at aider.nvim. If anyone else is a Vim user, it's automatically adding that context. Hey, that's an improvement. I would nearly ship this, but we need to do a bit more testing first. Because I can quickly load this context, I'm just closing aider again. I open it when I need it. Buffers in Vim, if I go :ls, it's saying I've got 2 open buffers at the moment. I've got the aider Lua and I've got the terminal, which was open before. Because the buffers are not the windows that are open, they're basically any files you have opened in this session. If I open up the README, and now if I go back to the other one, I've only got one file open, but I have multiple buffers open, and it will send them all to aider whenever I load it up, which is kind of a feature. But what if I did something like this? Add new file.txt, open, got stuff in it. Now I have got a new file. It's not in Git. That's going to make aider sad. And if I go to here, I've got these buffers open. Wonder what's going to happen. Open it up. Aider, adding. Okay. Oh, that's not too bad. New file and oh, look at that term thing. Probably need to filter that out. I think I might get that term filter in there. I'm going to, yeah, I think that is going to be, I'm just going to do term / like that. It's a bit of a hack, but I think that will start to improve things a little bit. So again, this is the speed of GPT-4, a little bit slower. I'm interested in use cases where you can do another task while it's doing its thing. But also, the other thing I find when using this in practice is that you want to start having small files and you want to start having small functions. It makes it easier for aider to cherry pick the parts of the code and not have to send down the whole file and regenerate the whole file, which is where it gets slow and wasteful and burns extra tokens. But that's also a good practice for a developer in general. I'd be advising my juniors to do that. I like that it encourages you in that sort of practice. It looks like it's filtering things. If not match, add it to the button. That looks like a pretty safe bet here. If we go back to the Lua file, it's got the if it doesn't match and save. It's already committed to Git, which means I can do a packer update. This is just reloading the plugin itself in Vim. Now we've got our, what was our text thing for? New text file and Lua. Sure. It looks like added new file. Oh, I'm guessing when I did that save, it committed new text file. It's no longer an uncommitted file. Yeah. Oh, we can do something classy. Let's go here. And I'm just going to go new.txt. Yeah. Proper development. Never mind. Okay. Let's get new.txt open. More stuff. Okay. Only. Now, this means I've got a buffer open with term. It means that I've got one that's uncommitted and I've got 2 which are committed. Let's see how it behaves. Add new file. Yep, I want to add it. And all right, that's a feature. I'm happy with that. I'm going to commit it and go from there. Hopefully that gives you an idea about how you can start to use this tool for production work. You're controlling the files that you're sending down. You're starting to drop them, add them when you want. You reset your chat. You can have them in a separate terminal, integrate it into your IDE if you can. Hopefully this shows you how you can start to integrate external things which ChatGPT doesn't know about. Is for now, just get them into a file in your system. Call it AI docs or whatnot. I've been teaching programmers for 10 years now. And one of the first things I encourage people to think about is you're writing your code for two audiences. There's the programmers and there's the computer. It needs to work for both. If you just make it work for the computer, but it's hard for programmers to read, well, that's the liability. It's not useful. If it just works for the programmers, but doesn't work for the computer, well, that's a bug. It's broken, non-functional. I think now we have to start writing for three audiences: human programmers, AI programmers, and the computer executing the code. I'm really interested and excited to see how this changes our development practices. As first step here is, well, I'm starting to curate some documentation in this repo only for the AI programmer. I'm not going to read that help file and try and figure things out. I can just get it when I need it. I can curate what I send down to ChatGPT and extend its capabilities beyond what it's trained for. That just opens up utility straight away. When we start building features on top of this, such as hoover up this website, stick it into a vector store, cherry pick the stuff you want, incorporate it into a knowledge base, that's where I just think these tools are going to supercharge every developer, which is why I'm going as far to say, I think everyone needs to be using these. If you're a developer who sells your time for code, you should start looking at this tech now, because I think right now it can save your clients money. Right now it can make you more productive, etc., which is pretty exciting to see. Because this is a sort of a play repo, I do have the auto commits on, which I don't love. I'm kind of curious to see, what does it feel like to have these heavy auto commits in there? Does it become useful for someone else? This is one of the things I actually really liked about the auto commit stuff, was GPT 3.5 is writing these commits, and it's doing a better job than I would most of the time. I think that idea of the AI capturing your intent, turning it into a Git message, that's a feature in its own right. Oh, I need to update the documentation. I wonder if aider can help with that. You betcha. Let's just update the README for starters. Oh, check this out. If you go run, here I might go git diff main. It's getting this output from a command line, and it's just dropping it in the chat. It's added an extra chat message, and it's showing you the git difference. Will it guess my intent? It shows it's changed some files. New block, new code. It was guessing that I wanted to change the code, but it was checking before making the change, which was polite. What I want to do now is I want you to change the README and to mention that it will automatically add open buffers. See how it does it. So high level of objective. And again, I'm not thinking too much about where should I put it. Here it's going for the usage section. And talk about doing dreary tasks for you. Updating documentation. How often do you not do that well enough because it's not as fun as coding? Here it is. Note will automatically add the open buffers to the Windows command. Well, that's good. What I think I'd like, though, is some tips for people who might not be as familiar with buffers in Vim. So maybe even a buff to VD, code or something like that. Again, this is thinking about just maybe let's make it a bit more useful. This is where I find it starts to get slow, is if you've got a big chunk of text that it's changing and also a bit inefficient, it's regenerating the old text and then it's generating the new text and it starts to go a bit slower there. I still think this is beating me. If I was trying to write that myself, I wouldn't have been done yet. It's updated the README. I'd go and do a final check on this. And also I'd say, please update the changelog. Oh, wait a second. Do I have the changelog in here? No. So it's not too hard to add files manually in aider. And also I find sometimes when it needs a file, it will ask for it and say, hey, you want to update the changelog. Can you please add it to this session? What do I want to do? Please add a new entry. It's actually doing what I said, but I'm just going to fix this myself. That's a typo. It's not worth getting it to hit things over there. Don't need aider anymore. So escape, quit the window. Let's get the changelog up and I will manually stick in with version 2 like this. Automatically adds there, added tips for working with buffers in Vim to the README file. Let's go here and just do a changelog. I am fixing. I will actually do some cleaning up of this Git history, but hey, that's a feature ready to push. That's it for today. As always, like or subscribe if you like the video. Comments below if you want to see any extensions on this. I'm quite keen to ship some features on the aider project itself and to keep this NeoVim plugin going. If you want to jump in, hey, the more people who swarm this tool, I think the faster it gets better for everyone. Have a lovely day.